process window. Respond.
All right, quiet please. Some of you are still going to be loading. That's fine. I'm just going to get started here, and when we actually get to doing things, I won't go anywhere until everybody's there. Now, if you are loaded into a program and it says something like Inventor Publisher up top, close that program. That's the wrong one. And find the one that says Inventor Professional. That's the one that you want to open up. Yeah. Then don't use the mouse right now. We'll get by without it. When you get to this screen, you can click on Start Working and stop. Yes?
You told me that Autodesk Inventor is not responding.
Sometimes you just got to be patient. If this is the first time you launch the program, there's a good chance you're going to get something about customer participation thing. You can just click yes. Probably a service terms and agreements thing. You can click I agree. Maybe something about licensing. If you get an error for licensing, usually if you restart it again, it works just fine after that. The first time you log in, though, or the first time you start it, it does take a few minutes or a few extra steps to get through. And after that, it should continue. It should open up quicker the next time. All right, so if you're still loading it up, that's fine. Just continue to let it load and just give me your attention up front here as we start going through stuff. Soccer guys, when you have to pack up, if you just want to quietly pack up and then you can leave, we'll just continue on without you. So this first screen that you get to is kind of like the home screen for the program, and it gives you access to several different things. It gives you access to a quick new menu, which I'll show you some details about that in a little while. It gives you a projects menu, and this is going to have the previous projects that you've done. I've done projects already on my computer, so you can see that I have some there. You probably have just maybe default or nothing in that box at all. And then there's also a recent documents window that as you open more and more documents, things will show up. I don't even know why I don't have any recent documents, but that's fine. First thing we got to understand about Inventor is several of the different types of files that are used in the program. The first type of file is one that you need to know about only when you start a project, and then you have to always be able to go back to that one every time, and it's called a project file. A project file is kind of like a resource file that just is a pointer, or just keeps track of pointers for all the files that you are using within a project. Because one project isn't just going to be one file, like a Word document or something like that, which is just one file. It could be several files, dozens of files, even on a really complex project. So let's get a project started just so we can have something. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let me go through them first, and then we'll make sure everybody's up and running. So a project file, it ends with the extension .ipj, standing for Inventor Project, IPJ. And there should only be one project file per project you have, but you should have a separate project file for every project. So in a couple moments, we'll set up a project file for doing these shapes, for doing these practice shapes, and this will be a project file that will only be for these shapes. Then the other kind of files you need are indicated by these little start icons up here, these new icons. We have part files, assembly files, drawing files, and presentation files. And the little icon kind of shows you what they are. A part file is a file of a specific object, a single object that you're going to make. All of these are going to end up being part files. All these shapes are going to end up being part files. An assembly file is when you take multiple individual parts and you put them together. And you assemble them. So when we make an object that has multiple parts, you know, like a car, it's going to have wheels on it, it's going to have axles, it's going to have things like that. Those will go together in what's called an assembly file, which takes individual parts and puts them together. Back to a part file has the extension .ipt, Inventor Part. Kind of see a pattern developing here. And an assembly file has the extension .iam, Inventor assembly. All right, so we have IPJ, which is a project file, IPT, which is a part file, and IAM, which is an assembly file. The other two types of files that you can have are IPJ files and IPN files and IDW files. These we'll use later on. Actually, we'll use IDW files pretty quickly. But you can see from the icons what those are. A drawing file is an IDW file. That's where you like just put pictures and drawings of what you did, much like what we're doing drawings in our engineer's notebook by hand. The Inventor will do that for you onto a sheet. And then a presentation file, from the little diagram you might be able to guess, it's also often called an exploded view. If you've ever put together a toy that comes unassembled, or like a piece of furniture that comes flat packed, usually there's a book of instructions, and one of the first things in the book is an exploded view, which shows all the pieces just kind of pulled apart with lines showing where everything goes. That's a very handy document to show how something goes together and to show all the discrete components of it, and that's what you use a presentation file to create. So those 5 types of files are important to understand the difference between them and when they're used. Most of the time we're going to be using IPT files for individual things, but we'll have reason to use all of those files. All right, then looks like it's about 2:45, so if you're in soccer you can go ahead and pack up. I'm going to walk around for those of you sticking with us and see if anybody needs help getting to the start screen before we go forward.
That's so mean. That's so mean. For the butt.
Where is Colin?
Dude, I know what to do. I just want to do it.
You didn't get worse.
I know. I figured it out.
Tell Colin I said have good soccer.
All right, let's go ahead and keep moving forward. So as I mentioned, the first thing we want to have for our project is a project file. To create a project file, go to the Projects tab, or the Projects button, up on the top of the screen. You can see that there's a menu up on the top of the screen, similar to like Microsoft Word, where there's panels, and if you click on the different small words, it'll open up a panel. And in that first panel, getting started, one of the buttons is Projects. So click on Projects, and it should bring up a window similar to this one, although it's not going to have as many things in it because you don't have any projects yet. And then click on New at the bottom of the screen. You're going to do a single user project for everything that we do here. We're not using something called Vault, which is useful in companies where they have multiple designers working on the same project. We're not using that here. And then click Next. And here's where you want to make sure you're doing this correctly. Because if you don't get this part done correctly for each project you do, it's just going to cause a real big problem when you work with projects with multiple parts. Here you're going to set up the name of the project and where you're going to store the project. So first let's choose where we're going to store the project. So on the second line there, click on the 3 dots. And I want you to store your projects in your Documents folder. That's sort of the default place in Inventor. Where did it go? Nathan Nolte. My Documents. Inventor, there it is. And then in Inventor, you're going to create a folder for the project. So click Make a New Folder and call it Shapes Practice. After you click New Folder, sometimes you have to click away to something else. After you finish naming it, you have to click away to something else and then click on it again for it to come up as your folder selection that you want to use. So that's where you're in the right spot. It's called Shapes Practice. All right, so once you have Shapes Practice in the folder spot, you can press OK. And then you can name the project the same thing. And you know you've got it done correctly if you see the bottom line here. It says it's going to create a project file in users, your name, documents, Inventor, Shapes Practice / Shapes Practice, and then you see that extension I mentioned, .ipj. That is the extension for a project file. Once you have that, you can press Finish. Okay, so that says new folder there, so you can actually get that folder name changed. So click on those 3 dots, yes. Find that new folder you made.
Pacing capital.
All right, we all good? All right, so you should be able to press finish, and now you have this project file. Now this project file is going to show up in this project list here, and it's going to have a check mark in front of it. That means you're in that project. Whenever you start Inventor, you want to make sure you're in the right project for what you're working in. Also, when I go back to this main screen, you can see shape practice is there as well, and it's got that check mark there. Right? You can actually just change the project right there in that main screen. Okay. Now that we have the correct project, we're ready to start making some parts. So let's see if we can't make 1 or 2 parts today. So grab that sheet of shapes if you have it. And press part. You want to make a new part. It'll take a few seconds just to open up the modeling environment. And you know you're all set when you have just kind of this empty gray space. This is the part modeling environment, and there's a whole bunch of tools here that we're going to have to start learning. Notice that up top you have several different tool panels that you can get access to. The first one that you start in by default is the 3D model panel, and there's a whole bunch of tools in that panel. There's also a sketch panel, an inspect panel, tools, manage view. There's a whole bunch of different ones, which we'll start to get into as we go, but it's going to take a while to learn a lot of these different ones. Couple of things just in case you get stuck. If you do something that screws something up, I'm going to show you how to get yourself back out. So you have this panel here of tools. Notice at the end of the tools, I think it's going to be simulation. It's going to be the last one you have. I'm not sure about that though. Autodesk 360, okay. Then there's this little arrow here, and if you click on that arrow, it makes all of your buttons, your panels, change shape. You can just cycle through that by clicking on that again, and it's just a way to change how you view it. If you want more screen space without having those all those panels, then you click on that. So if all of a sudden you don't see the buttons, just look for that little arrow and click on that. Right below that is the modeling environment, which we'll get back to in a second. But to the left of that is something called the browser. It doesn't have much in it right now. You can see it says part 1, and then it has a couple things, and it says end of part. That's an important place to be able to access while you're modeling a part and when you're working with assemblies. Sometimes you accidentally close it by clicking on the little X. And you're like, oh no, what did I do? I've closed the browser. I kid you not, I've seen people try to reinstall the program when they've closed the browser because they can't figure out how to get it back. So thankfully you don't have the ability to do that on the computers, so I won't have to mess around with that. But if you accidentally close the browser and you need to get it back, or if you purposely close the browser and you need to get it back, you go to the View tab, and then you go to the User Interface. And underneath that is a little checkbox for a bunch of things, and the one we're looking at right now is Browser. And if you click that checkbox again, the browser will come back. So if you ever accidentally close the browser, that's where you go to get it back. All right, let's jump into modeling something. I don't have it up on screen, but you're going to look at your own sheets there. Let's start with something relatively simple. We'll start with number 9. All right, when we model something in Autodesk Inventor and most 3D modeling programs, you start with a 2-dimensional view of it, and then you do what's called extrude it to make it into a 3-dimensional object. This is going to be similar to when we were drawing the oblique drawings the other day, where we start with what we see in the front face, and then we add the depth to it. So in order to start, we need to first draw a sketch. So back to that 3D modeling tab, if you were in the View tab, go back to the 3D modeling tab. You can see the first button there is Start a 2D Sketch, and that's the first thing we want to do. So go ahead and click on that. As soon as you do that, it brings up this funky looking little matrix thing here. And this is the different origin planes. A plane as in the planes of geometry in mathematics and geometry. There are 3 origin planes. Each plane contains 2 dimensions, and we're in 3 dimensions. So if you have 3 dimensions, how many combinations of 2 can you make? Well, you can make 3 unique combinations. If you hover over each plane, that'll tell you which plane it is. That one is the XY plane. That's the plane that you're most used to seeing in geometry. Your x-axis, your y-axis, that's the normal 2-dimensional plane. But then you also have one next to that, the YZ plane. The Y would be the vertical direction, and the Z is front to back. And then the one that's laying flat is the XZ plane. So there are 3 different planes. When you start a 2D sketch, you have to attach it to a plane. So when we start a 2D sketch, we have to select which plane we're going to attach it to. We're going to almost always, at least for the start, attach it to the XY plane. So as soon as you start the 2D sketch, you can click on the XY plane, and it will auto-center us into a 2-dimensional view, which is called the sketch view, instead of the 3-dimensional modeling view. Yes? Let me go back. So I chose to start a 2D sketch. I hovered over this one that sticks up the furthest. It says X, Y, and then click on it. So now that we're in the XY plane, we have 2 axes here. Can you guess which axes these are? X and Y, very good. The x-axis goes left to right, the y-axis goes up and down. And then there's a little yellow dot in the center, and that's referred to as the origin. A general rule of thumb that will eventually break sometimes, but most of the time you want to follow, is that whenever you start a sketch, you want to anchor it to the origin to start. You want to just start it at the origin. It just makes life easier. Okay? It's just one of those things, just trust me, it makes life easier. So we're going to start by making a 2-dimensional sketch using the line tool. Notice that, by the way, once we enter the sketch mode, the panel automatically switched to the sketch panel. We're going to use the line tool. The line tool, we specify lines by clicking on the vertices of where they are. Okay, we don't click and drag. You don't have to do that. You just click once to start, click once to end it. And we're going to start in the origin. So hover your mouse over the origin. It'll turn a little green dot to show that you're going to lock to it. Click once, and then drag your mouse over to the right. You'll notice as you drag your mouse away that there's a line attached to it. Well, it's because we're in the line tool. And you'll also notice that there are some numbers attached to it, because we can specify a dimension for the line as soon as we start making it. And we want to do that. So if you're already clicked without specifying a number, just press Control-Z. Control-Z is your best friend. That's undo, the universal undo command. Or the little bent arrow in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And click back in the origin and set, and we're going to set a dimension. So we're going to make these shapes 1 inch per unit. So looking at number 9, we can see that number 9 is 9 units wide. How convenient. So now that I've got my line started here, I'm just going to type the number 9 on my keyboard. That's going to put a 9 dimension on that line. And then just so I don't accidentally mess something up by moving the mouse around, I'm just going to press Enter. And that's going to create a 9-inch long line from the origin going to the right. Now, if it's like mine, I can't see the end of my line because I'm too far zoomed in. Well, you can easily zoom out by using the mouse wheel. This is why it's great to use a mouse. If you're not using a mouse, then you can use the slider on your touchpad to zoom out as well. You can pinch to zoom. So I just zoomed out a little bit. Another very useful mouse keyboard shortcut or mouse shortcut is if you want to pan on the screen, meaning you just want to move stuff around, move your view around, you hold down the mouse wheel as a button, and that gives you the ability to pan. So the mouse wheel itself zooms in and out. The mouse wheel button pans around. If you, do you have 3 buttons on your? No, you only have 2 on your keyboard. So I'm not sure if a 3-finger tap will do the same thing or not. But
There's a like hand thing.
yes, you can also manually choose the hand, which is the pan tool. But the nice thing about the button is you don't have to leave the tool that you're in. All right, now we want to finish this shape. So we went over 9. Now we have to go up how far? 2 inches, right? So just do 2 and press enter. And now I've got a little vertical line of 2 inches. Now after that, there's this angled line. And how long is that angled line? Well, it's 4 times the square root of 2. Now, we actually don't care. We don't care in a sense how long it is, because we're going to do the easy lines instead. So instead of drawing this angle line next, just press escape to break your connection, and we're going to go over and do the straight lines instead. Let me do these real quick, and then Spencer, if you still have a question, I'll come over and help. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to just press escape. Escape cancels whatever operation you're currently in, which right now is using the line tool. So I'm going to go back to the line tool again, and I'm going to go back to the origin where I started. And this time I'm just going to make the vertical line that makes the left side of the shape, which is 6. And then I'm going to make the horizontal line, which is the top of the shape, which is 5. And now to finish the shape, all I have to do is connect my 2 corners. And it really doesn't matter how long it is. It actually tells me it's 5.657 inches long. But I don't want it to be, that's actually a rounded off value. I just wanted to connect those 2. So I click those 2, and it's connected. All right, I'll come around and help if anybody's stuck.
That looks really weird. How far you can use it. Yeah.
No, you have to zoom in. Without losing it. Okay.
Now go back to line tool. 2 inch line up here. 6 inch line here. 5 inch line. Okay, so your line somehow did not get locked to a orientation. So we'll talk about these later, but right now you can do this on the line.
Whoa.
But you need to delete this one. 6. 5. G6. So deleting click on it.
Arthur, do you want to see something? Probably escape.
Anyone still be with the other ones? Press escape. Here, 6 tall, 5 across. Don't drape it. Just click. Control V or escape. Yep. 6 up. 5 over. Control, hold on, control, press Z.
Control, hold it up. Yeah.
Yep. Before you click again, you just type the number and press escape. Press Control Z to get rid of that line. Go back to line tool. Make sure you get that green dot that you started in the middle. All right, all we're going to get done is this first shape today, so I'm going to show you how to finish it, and then if there's more people who need help, I'll come around and help until the time is out. So, if you're this far, great. If you're not, I'll come back and help you. You know that you've done it correctly if everything is blue-ish, purple-blue, and in the lower right-hand corner, when you're not using a tool at all, so press Escape, in the lower right-hand corner it says fully constrained. That's an important thing. We're going to talk about more of that next time, what fully constrained means. But for now, you want to always strive to have your sketches fully constrained before you finish the sketch. Okay? Fully constrained means that it's fully dimensioned and locked in place so that it can't accidentally move in a different area or in a way that you don't want it to be. Okay? If it doesn't say fully constrained, I'll come around and give you a hand. If it does, then you're good. All right, now we've got a two-dimensional shape, but we got to make it a three-dimensional object. To do that, we can do it in just a couple of steps. The first thing we do is we press Finish Sketch, and that gets us out of the sketch mode. By the way, I showed a couple people of this. If you ever kind of are zoomed in the wrong amount and you don't like it, click on the little house button right above the view cube. That's the home button, and that'll just give you a view that centers everything nicely. Now to finish up this shape, all we have to do is add the depth. So we extrude it. It is 4 units extruded, so I choose the button that says Extrude. I enter the value 4, and I press Enter. And now I've got a three-dimensional shape that matches the one on my sheet. All right.
What did you do?
If you got that one done, sorry, one last thing. When you get that one done, save it as part number 1. Well, it's already part number 1. Save it as Shapes Practice 1. Or Shape 1. Just pressing the Save button, it'll ask you what do you want to name it. Press Shape 1, and then you got it done. All right? If you got yours successfully done and your neighbor is struggling, see if you can help them out. I'll come around and help people until time is up. Who else is stuck? Don't do it for him. Don't do it for him. All right. You did that.
Oh, that is cool. Oh.
Are you gonna check? Yes, you are.
Whoa.
Do you have to select the whole thing?
No, we just go. Gunmetal. Gunmetal.
What is that? Is that
That thing right there.
about that?
Mine's
Charlie.
pink. No, default. That. It says click in the middle of it. Not sometimes you get extra lines and diamonds. Yeah.
Really, really boring.
There's carbon fiber.
Dirt brown.
Carbon fiber. Found it.
Glossy.
Dude,
That's not very glossy.
hard to look at
It
it.
just
make your
looks
eyes
yellow.
hurt. Makes your eyes hurt if you stare at it. It's carbon
Machine.
fiber. It's carbon fiber.
Rubber.
Rubber. You got foil gold.
Well, aluminum.
Zinc.
What pennies are made?
Walnuts. Weld brass.
Uniform running.
Texture.
You made up brick.
Snow. Oh, I made snow. That
There might be something that's not clear. You're going to have to start that.
steel blue.
What's going on? We're not going to do any more today. Did you get the one done?
Skid plate.
You're on the next one.
Whoa. That was
All right. If you are comfortable with what we've done so far and you want to start trying some of the other shapes just for fun, absolutely you're welcome to. You will have to do them all eventually. However, there's a lot more stuff I have to teach you in order to be able to do them successfully.
Can we guess? I'm getting carbon fiber. Because that makes sense about here. Well, that's a different carbon fiber. How do you say what's generic? That's generic one. Cardboard. Wow, whoa! I made a thing. Cool, white. That's not white. And that's the exact same as.
All right, good question, because if you want to do more, you'll need to know that. So once you've saved it, if you want to do a new one, you just click on New. There's a couple places to do New. The very top of the page, there's the first little button next to the I is New. The I is like the File menu. If you click on that, there's a New button. If you close this one that we saved, it'll bring you back to the home screen we were at before, and there's the New button as well. You save it by pressing Save. The Save button is either that little disk icon or going to the I tool and using the save.
Yep. Now what do you do?
All right, that's it for today. If that was confusing at all to you, I'm going to post the screen capture I made of this online.